Bruce, thank you so very much for joining me today. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on and chat with you. How's it all going?
Yeah, excellent. We're just getting back into things after Christmas and New Year celebrations, and did a couple of shows last weekend. One in Cambridge, and the other one I've already forgotten about, but it was very good. And we just done another couple. We're just about to do another couple before we have a annual holiday, basically.
Annual holiday. I bet you're looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I mean it's different this year. We normally go away, go abroad for February to get some winter sun, etc. But my circumstances have obviously changed. Having had cancer in my arm, the last thing I should be doing is going out on a sunbed. That was half my problem in the first place. That I was a bit of a sun worshipper, and um, it got me basically. But as I said, touch wood, I'm just going to be doing bits and bobs around the house and walking my dog, etc. Just take it easy at home.
How are you doing yourself with your health now after that scare?
Yeah, well, it's obviously, yeah, it was a scare. If someone says you've got a lymph node that's cancerous, it's very scary because unfortunately, like a lot of people, but I've been there too many times with my family, but my brother, my dad, my mum, my first wife all died of cancer in various different places. And I just thought, oh, so it's my turn, is it? But thankfully, thank God, that at the moment everything's going very well. So yeah, just it made the band we looked at because Russ had a minor stroke, and he had a couple of stents fitted, and this was literally about 2 weeks either after me or before I said I had a problem, and we just said, well, look, let's reduce the number of shows that we're doing because it is grueling. We're no spring chickens, and it is grueling. So that's what we're doing. That's why there's only a couple of shows in each week, which hopefully, eases the stress because neither of us want too much stress with what we've had wrong with us. Um, and we see how we go.
But I'm really glad to hear that you're both fighting well still and looking forward to the tour. We'll be sure to chat all about the dates later on where you're playing
Yeah,
and
sorry, I didn't want to bring your listeners down with all that, but you did ask.
oh no, it's absolutely fine. But I'm like I say, I'm glad to know everything's okay with yous. But
Yeah,
before we talk about the All Mod Cons tour, I always like when I do an interview. I like to always go back to the early days and ask where it all began. And I'm a huge fan of the Jam, so I really want to know, Bruce, where did it all begin for you with the Jam? How did the band come together, and how did you come to join the Jam?
yeah. Well, it is a long story, and if it gets boring, just cut me off. But around about 74, I was looking for a band to join. Well, I had a own little band, three piece, and called Rita, which we never got out of the rehearsal room. We just turn up once a week religiously, run our songs, and then go home. But we never got any work. And then I noticed an advert in the local paper, the Woking News and Mail, guitarist wanted, I think it said. And I went on for an audition, and obviously Rick was there, Paul was there, and Steve Brooks at that time was there, and they kind of thought what I was doing on rhythm guitar was what they wanted. So I joined them around about that period, and then it was a lot of fun. We had John Weller, Paul's dad, as our manager, which was great. It was quite unique to have that situation, and he did great things for us in terms of negotiating and stuff and that. Um, and yeah, we got on the London pub circuit, and that was really exciting. The Red Cow and the Greyhound, the Nashville rooms. We did a little circuit, and the marquee obviously was fantastic for us because Chris Parry from Polydor Records was there, and I think the Pistols had already been signed, so that Polydor had missed out on getting their punk act, so they became very interested in us, and we signed a deal with Polydor.
Obviously, it was a very exciting time. You were all young. It was all new to you. So what would you describe the influences? How would you describe the Jam's influences? Is there any bands, artists that the
Yeah,
Jam looked to before you started the music journey?
Yeah, I mean, the Beatles played a real big part of the early days, and that was sort of coming through in Steve and Paul's writing. They have very melodic songs. Um, what can I say? So yeah, the Beatles big one, the Who obviously with Pete with his guitar work and that, you know, the Kinks, all that, Small Faces, um, that they all just were up our street. That's where we were drawing our influences from.
Yeah, and what I liked about the Jam was obviously you had these influences, but the Jam kind of came along with their own image, of course, the punk music, but then like the image of
Yeah.
wearing the suits as well.
Yeah, yeah, we were sort of pigeonholed as the black sheep punk because we had suits, we wore suits, you know, and the other bands, etc., were wearing bondage trousers and stuff, and that had disaster written all over it for me. I'm pretty clumsy at the best of times, and let alone having my legs strapped together.
Yeah,
So we veered. It was a lot easier as well in the very early days when John Weller was going around at working men's clubs to try and get us a gig. Um, it was better, easier, not that easy, but easier for him to get in the door and show photographs of the Jam in suits and ties and, you know, oh, they look a nice bunch of lads. Yeah, we'll book them. Yeah,
like because it was like this unique image which nobody had seen before.
yeah, well, I mean, obviously, my middle brother, Derek, he was an original mod, I suppose you could call it. And there was a lot of, for me, there was a lot of Motown influences there because there was a real big dance hall in Woking at the time, called the Atlanta, and they were playing a lot of Motown. And that's where I got my influences from because my brother Derek was well into Motown, and I used to listen to all his records and listen to them, you know.
So you kind of had a little bit of a Motown influence as well.
Yeah, I guess, you know, but and of course, you know, particularly Paul, that um, it was new to him. It was like the first time round, you know, what, you know, he was too young to have been part of the, you know, the original mod kind of movement, dare I say. So it was all unique to him, and you know, we just enjoyed the clothes. It was a big part of the show. It was actually getting into the dressing room, putting your suit on, looking hopefully sharp, you know, and we got the music to match.
Fantastic. And of course, after that point, how did things develop for the Jam after being signed up? And did things develop very quickly after that?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, obviously there was the Clash, Sex Pistols, you know, they were all
All that
coming out.
movement.
Yeah. Um, and we were doing some shows with those various bands, you know, and the whole thing started to really take off on major record labels. Um, yeah,
Yeah, it was kind of that movement, but Jam had a lot of meaning behind them, like some of the lyrics for the working class and everything. What would you say um this element of the Jam was?
I think we took it pretty, you know, you got to remember that, you know, I think Paul was probably about 18, I was only like 20 or 21. Um, and they were our views at that time, you know, but we were, you know, looking back, some of the lyrics, you'd probably think, well, that's a bit naive, but, you know, to us at 18 years old, they didn't seem naive. They were what we felt.
So
Um,
like
you know, but since we've been going, I know I don't want to jump the gun with where we're going with this interview, but um, when we went out from the jam, or we are going out from the jam, um, you know, I had to revisit a lot of the songs because I hadn't played them for 20 odd years or whatever. And if I listened to the lyrics more then or now than I did then, you know, and he's a good lyricist, Paul, you know, and obviously he's still doing very well. Good luck to him. But yeah, we took the lyrics pretty serious, not just all like the moon in June and stuff, you know. Yeah,
almost like writing from the heart and what you guys felt at the time.
Yeah, exactly. We weren't preaching to people. It's just our point of view, and as simple as that, really.
Of course, I imagine there was plenty of gigs along the way with the Jam. Can you tell me a most memorable moment from being on tour with the Jam, Bruce?
Well, the thing is, um, there's too many to mention.
I imagine there's a lot.
There is a lot of good moments. I mean, obviously getting a first record deal, with Polydor, getting in, actually coming home to show me mum and dad the 45, of in the city, going into the pub, your local pub where you're on the jukebox, you know,
Yeah, I bet that was
and
special.
your mates are sitting down, pointing to the jukebox, saying, you're on it. Now, if I have a look on the jukebox, it's in the golden oldies section.
I did. I do. Obviously, jukeboxes were a bit before my time, but I do still like going into a pub and and seeing a jukebox with all of the classics on it.
Yeah, I've got lucky enough. I've got a jukebox, and when my granddaughter comes over, she puts on Eton Rifles. She loves throwing herself about to that. It's quite sweet, really.
How does it feel for you then when she plays that and you hear it back after all those years?
Yeah, most of the tracks have stood the test of time. They still get played on the radio, particularly Malice has been in a few films, etc. And I still get a buzz out of it. I get a buzz out of doing interviews, playing the shows, because I can't believe my luck, really. It's like 46 years since All Mod Cons was released. 46 years, in my heyday, I thought if you were 40, you were an old git. There we are performing these songs still going strong. And the crowds, we sell out wherever we play because they want to hear those great songs. And as long as I can do it to a good standard and it's not becoming a cabaret act, we'll continue.
I think that's the thing with the Jam. I think being such an iconic band with such iconic songs, I don't think the songs will ever die. And I think the Jam are going to be one of them bands that just pass through generations. I mean, my uncle is a big fan of the Jam. He was around to see it all in the '70s, and my dad likes the Jam, and then that's being passed on to me. And I think that's the case. And obviously, we'll
Yeah.
talk about the All Mod Cons tour, but do you still get such a buzz out of playing all the songs all these years on?
Yeah. As I say, if it didn't get a buzz, I'd have to think about do I want to continue? It's oh, it sounds cheesy, really, but it is in my blood. If I didn't do what I'm doing, what would I do? You know? And yeah, there's nothing more satisfying is that you can see the pleasure and joy on the audience when we play those fantastic songs, and it bounces back to us, and we get off on the audience enjoying it so much.
I imagine it's a pretty good feeling. Before
Yeah,
we,
well, as I say, it puts everything in perspective, really.
and you can kind of look back and feel proud on what you've achieved.
No, absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Before we talk about the All Mod Cons album, I want to talk about the split of the Jam. Of course, it was such a big part of your life. How did it feel to you and Rick when Paul decided he wanted to go another way?
Um, well, it's something like someone had pulled my arm off. It was a shock that Paul, I think his words were, he's leaving the band. You know, and we always kind of said we had this unwritten sort of not rule, but thought that if any one of us, whether it be Paul, Rick, or myself, decided that was enough, we would have to respect that, basically.
I know you described it as the bitterest pill you ever had to swallow.
No, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very hard. But we, when you're on the road with someone, you get to know them really well, and you can tell their moods and what they're thinking almost. And you know, you could see like when we were in places like Japan and abroad, you know, America, where at the time Paul didn't really want to travel that far. Um, and you could see he was not exactly happy with the overall situation of the band. And I just haven't put it into words really. But I thought that Paul might say, look, you know, I want to take time out, give it a break for however long you need, is what we said, you know, Rick and myself, you know, if you want to take a year out, so be it, you know. But he was obviously, he'd obviously made his mind up what his next move was and where he was going, you know. So, yeah, it was a big shock, very, yeah, just a huge shock, you know. It was like you said, you know, it was all my life, you know, was there. And it was, you know, well, what are we going to do? You know?
I think especially given the success the Jam were having at the time as well after just releasing The Gift.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, we had #1 album, #1 single. You know, it's great to say, oh, yeah, we went out at the top. But I think, and you don't know, but I think we had more to offer and it was too early to disband, you know? Um, and I know, I think it was, he'd only be a dinosaur, but yeah. But as I say, yeah, it would have been nice to have maybe if we had a couple more years at it or whatever. But there was never going to be a happy time to split the band up or get, you know, stop performing as the Jam. Um, yeah, very, very emotional.
I can imagine it was very tough, and I think for you and Rick as well, for Paul to go and move on, I bet it was really really gutting. But can you tell me about the coming back with From the Jam years later?
Yeah, well, 2006, I was with a band called Casbah Club, and it was Mark Brzezicki on drums and myself on bass. Um, and Bruce Watson on guitar, some of the stuff. Um, we were playing at Guildford University in Surrey, and Rick's band was also playing the same show. Um, and I'm sorry, I'm in a deep here, but yeah, Rick's band was on the same gig, and he called himself The Gift, and we were on the same bill. Someone suggested, like, well, look, why don't you and Rick get up and do a couple of numbers together during the gift set? And they said, well, yeah, I'd love to. And Rick said, actually, I'm up for that. And it was like 28 years at that point since we played together. And we did Tube Station and Smithers, I think. And the reaction was unbelievable, you know, so emotional. There were a lot of people at the front that you could see were in tears with emotion, I hope, not like it was bad.
No, I'm sure it was with emotion.
Uh, and it was great fun to have done it. And then after the show, I got chatting with them. Russell was in that band, and we said, well, it was great. You know, let's do a few more of those where you jump up on stage and do half a dozen songs or whatever. So we did that for a period, and until it got to the point that up and down the country were really enjoying this. So we decided to go full time and said, you know, 2006, 2007, let's go out as From the Jam, because when in those sort of music circles, I was always introduced as, oh, this is Bruce Foxton from the Jam, you know. So we said, well, let's go out as From the Jam. It's always tricky to think of a name, etc. So on 2007, we formed, you know, From the Jam, and we stuck at it since.
I imagine it felt amazing getting out to play all of the iconic songs again.
Yeah, and because, you know, they sounded so fresh because we hadn't played them for donkeys, you know. You know that's part of touring. You know, you need a lot of good songs to I'd like to have subs sort of thing to keep it fresh, you know, like rotate the songs a bit, you know, don't keep playing in the city well, there are songs actually that you are expected to play every night. You know, you can't not get away with not playing Malice or whatever, you know, going underground. Um, so yeah, yeah,
especially that with especially because the Jam have got such a good back catalogue as well. There's loads to choose from, and I bet it's nice to rotate.
it is, and it's great that there's such a strong set of songs, you know, that have stood the test of time. I mean, you know, we're playing. I think I mentioned it earlier. I don't know if we were recording then, but yeah, we're playing Dubai in March, and you know, it's taken us around the world still, you know, because the demand is there.
And people still want to, of course, hear the songs. If I ask you what is your current favourite song to play live with from the Jam, what would you say?
Well, are we talking about all mod cons yet?
Yeah,
There's a couple of tracks there, you know, in the crowd is a nice song to play, Mr. Clean, you know, there's loads. Um, you know, Pretty Green, you know, it could go on and on really. Strange Town when you're young, you know, so they're all there.
so many. We are going to talk about all mod cons now. Of course, from the Jam are back out on the road this year, taking the show all over the country until June, I believe. And you're playing the All Mod Cons album in full, and it's actually got my favorite Jam song on it, which is David Watts.
Yeah, that's a good live
That's
one.
that's one of my favorite jams. Probably my favorite. I remember I seen you at Hardwick Live back in the summer last year, and and you opened with that one.
Oh, right.
It's a great song, but
Yeah, it's
almost
a good opener as well because you really get the audience straight into it, you know.
and it's got that nice tone to open it as well. Um, but the Almost Cons album, can you tell me a little bit about what you remember making this album and taking it back out on the road again for its 45th
Yeah,
anniversary?
I mean, there is a studio in St John's Wood in London that called Rack Studios. It was owned by Mike Mickey Most from the 60s. He had lots of bands, Mud and Susie Quattro and all those sort of acts on his label. And he had Rack Studios in St John's Wood, excuse me. And it was kind of a make or break album, really, because we'd had In the City out and that did very well for us, but that was purely a live set. And then we had This Is the Modern World, which we started to introduce acoustic guitars, which the press couldn't believe. You know, it's like, what are they doing? You know, we want another In the City too, or whatever. But like we said in this chat, we wanted to keep moving and you know, trying different things musically. And so we found the studio, which was great because a lot of studios are there's not a window in sight and it's not very inspiring. It felt too claustrophobic, really. But Rack had windows that you could see out into the street, see the life goes on, etc. And it was a make or break album because, you know, introducing acoustic guitars, the press didn't really like it that much, although there's some lovely songs on there. And we come up with All Mod Cons, you know, working with Vic Smith, producer, and Chris Parry. Um, yeah, we came up with a bunch of good songs, and thankfully, um, the audience, the punters, fancy really liked it as well. You know, so and that kind of set us up. We kind of overcome that slight issue with trying to please the record label. We just wanted to please ourselves, and hopefully, so you know, the public enjoyed it as much as we did.
I think a lot of artists and bands say that the second album is the dreaded one because you've got to follow up the first, and in the Jam's
Yeah,
case, you're following up in the city.
yeah, yeah. Uh, and then slowly, you know, we said, well, yeah, we're going to do it our way because they suggested we went up to Aylesbury to try and write songs for All Mod Cons, what became All Mod Con. And we had a bunch of songs, but the label didn't really like them. And we went back to the drawing board again. And yeah, then we came up with All Mod Cons, and there's been no real looking back since then.
Of course, you're revisiting the whole album on the tour this year. Can
Yeah.
you tell me a little bit more about the tour as well, and how you're looking forward to getting back out on the road for these shows and playing the album as well as a range of other hits too?
Well, we're looking forward to it. I don't know what more we can say really that we haven't said. There's great songs on there. The audience love it. I mean, they're very partly. I mean, the longevity of the band, which you have touched upon earlier on, it's going to go on and on because there are like parents and bringing up their kids and
And
their kids,
passed on.
etc. You know, um, yeah, I don't know what more to say. Sorry.
I think I think we've covered it, but it'll be a great show, and tickets will be available on from the Jams website, I believe.
Yeah, again, it's something that we've got the Jam website, or AGMP is another one. That's our agent who looks after us and does very well, as does Peter Barton, who's our mate, and he gets involved with it in loads of different ways, helps make the ship sound properly. And yeah, looking forward to it. And we've had, as we said, we've had a little break, and that always helps coming back to something you're hopefully revitalised. And we go again. I mean, we've never really stopped playing. We just reduced the number of days that we play. But we're lucky that we can afford to just do what we want, really.
Absolutely.
Um, you know, yeah.
Well, I can't wait to see the show myself. I'll be down in May at the show in Newcastle at the Boiler Shop, and I'm looking forward to hearing the album in full and all the other hits. But Bruce, it's been a real pleasure to chat with you today. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks a lot, bud.